The most vulnerable on-air folks, according to sources, are the ones that make near or more than seven figures and are not considered needle movers. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, anything related to American football, the NFL draft too, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too. Okay, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I had an awesome interview yesterday with the voice of college football, Mark Rogers. He's awesome. Go check out his channel. We had a really, really great discussion. There was something that he said earlier in that day that is related to a story that we're going to talk about here. And again, this story came up just earlier yesterday, related to ESPN, because there's some situations going on, and it's important to remember kind of how this impacts the Pac-12, how this impacts conference realignment, how this impacts, the networks, the deals, and things like that, because the relationship between the conferences, the networks, and the providers, and this and that, it's very, very complex, but it's also indicative of kind of what's happening here in college football. There's a couple things that are connecting. We're going to connect all those dots. First of all, with an article on ESPN and its layoffs. Boom, from Andrew Marchand of New York Post. ESPN layoffs are coming soon, and nearly everyone is vulnerable. Now, it's important. They're talking about internal employees here in terms of, this commentator, that commentator, so on and so forth. However, you're also going to talk about the reason why that's becoming more and more rare here, because they're just kind of drawing back in multiple different ways. Comes down here and says ESPN's latest round of layoffs will have no sacred cows, meaning everybody from top on-air people to big-time executives are being scrutinized, with the cuts expected to be finalized in the next 4 to 6 weeks. The moves are part of the layoffs that Disney's CEO Bob Iger announced were coming across all company units. Last month, Iger said that 7,000 jobs would be eliminated across the board. At the direction of ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitaro, head of departments have been told to scrutinize their divisions to make them as efficient as possible. At this time, there is no target number for how many millions that ESPN must save or how many employees will be let go. According to sources, ESPN declined to comment. And again, important thing here to remember here is the fact that, and again, I know people will say, oh, it's wokeness, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. It's the economy, it's interest rates, it's all of the above, okay? Everybody is tightening their belts. That's what you need to do in this situation. So you're finding all the different areas. And again, what happens in down economies, people don't like down economies, obviously, because there's sometimes people can be hungry, without jobs, this and that. There's lots of situations there that are bad. The good things you can pull from down economies is people get more efficient. They're like, this works, that doesn't, so on and so forth. I actually was talking with my boss, and my boss was saying, it does suck if economies pull back, but there's a bunch of jokers. He didn't use jokers. There's a bunch of jokers out there who've been getting by on, well, we could process improve, or we could borrow $200 million and buy our way out of these problems. Now, those options aren't on the table. They actually have to treat their employees better. They have to be more, if they keep them. Unfortunately, that's a scenario there where they might not keep their employees. There's lots of things like that they have to do, including seeing, should we be spending $2 million on this on-air personality, $400,000 on that, so on and so forth. We continue on. In recent years, ESPN has spent heavily on top commentators. Troy Aikman, $18 million a year. Joe Buck, $15 million a year. Stephen A. Smith, $12 million a year. And they're still in ad mode as they're in the Pat McAfee sweepstakes. And again, Pat McAfee, extremely well, a compensatable asset out there. Everybody likes Pat McAfee. Last week, Post reported McAfee is exploring moving to a network that could have him step away from FanDuel in the midst of a 4-year, $120 million contract, but any McAfee ESPN deal would have to make financial sense for the network. ESPN is a possibility for McAfee, but probably not the favorite right now. And you'll see, again, in not only that, the multiple different ways for conferences in college football, it's the same thing too. They're not necessarily the favorite for a couple of them here. Meanwhile, the ESPN belt tightening is already felt in negotiations with college football national championship game caller Chris Fowler. Fowler, who reportedly makes $3 million a year, and ESPN have been far apart in negotiations, according to sources. ESPN wants to retain Fowler, maybe even with a slight raise, as he is its lead college football and Grand Slam tennis voice, but he's not going to receive a large increase to put him anywhere near Joe Buck money. The most vulnerable on-air folks, according to sources, are the ones that make near or more than seven figures and are not considered needle movers. Stephen A. Smith, Late Night Sports Center anchor Scott Van Pelt and Monday Night Football booth are considered the type of talent that is untouchable. So you think about that here. And again, I talked to Mark Rogers yesterday. He basically said the reason why ESPN is kind of struggling in these instances is because they keep on spending on these panel shows and this and that. However, because of the advent of the internet, of YouTube, of Rumble, of this and that, all those different competitors out there, the market is flooded and their value has decreased. However, they're still paying for Stephen A. Smith. He moves the needle. Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, they move the needle. Scott Van Pelt does too. However, that middle talent and the bottom talent, it's a lot easier to do something like this. And again, I don't get paid yet. We're getting close. But again, that really suppresses the market. It floods it with a bunch of competition out there. Despite the cord cutting in which subscribers are dropping cable, ESPN is still a money cow for Disney, which is expected to demonstrate when it releases its separate earnings report in November. Previously, ESPN's numbers were rolled into Disney's and not broken out, but under the new structure, Iger recently unveiled ESPN will show its data to the public. ESPN is currently in around 74 million homes, each with household paying in the range of $10 per month, which means it still rakes in $750 million per month before it sells one advertisement. Huge. ESPN Plus, a relatively new direct-to-consumer add-on, has 24.9 million subscribers. It charges $9.99 per month, but can be bundled with Hulu and Disney for a cheaper price. Iger said that it is, and this is important here, Iger recently said that it is, quote-unquote, inevitable that the entirety of ESPN will go direct to consumer. There is no exact date, according to sources, but it will happen in the next few years, if not sooner. ESPN would still be offered on cable and satellite, but its full programming would be available to cord cutters. That's the way that's been going. And again, I think that's a big aspect behind the Pac-12 right now is because the Pac-12, I think people think they're going to fall apart because people are trying to leave. I actually think what they're trying to do is trying to be on the cutting edge here and sign possibly some sort of a streaming deal. We'll get into that in a second here. But again, nobody's done that yet. Even if it's a portion of it, a large portion of their conference schedule on a streaming deal would be unique in college football. Even though ESPN has maintained its place atop sports media and continues to shoot off, not as much as it once did, profits, layoffs have become a regular part of the Bristol experience in 2015, which had been immune to cuts that had been a part of the media for decades, was hit by 300 layoffs behind the scenes personnel in 2017. 250 people were laid off, including stars like Ron Jaworski, Mark Stein, and Trent Dilfer. So again, that's a big situation. Like I said, the middle people, Trent Dilfer, Ron Jaworski, guys like that, they're the ones that got laid off. The top talent are kept, but the middle ones are let go because they have to be cord cutting in some different way, cost cutting on their part. And we come over to sportspromedia.com, talking about the Pac-12 media rights deal in terms of their broadcasters and conference expansion. Listen to this right here. According to ESPN, an update on the rights negotiations is due to be provided to the Pac-12's board, but no final deal is expected to be agreed upon immediately, despite members being keen to resolution in order to provide financial certainty. Listen to this. It's very important, this highlighted section here. The Pac-12 is thought not to be considering any streaming-only media contract that would exclude a traditional linear TV component. However, the possibility for a streaming platform such as Apple TV or Amazon Prime to buy the rights and then sub-license them to a linear network remains an option. Lanzano reports that the presence of Amazon and Apple has meant negotiations have slowed down as a result. I think a lot of people think that slowdown in negotiations means that Colorado, Utah, Arizona State are trying to leave. I don't believe that's going to happen, but again, you never know. Keep your eyes open. The Pac-12's current broadcast partner, ESPN, we just mentioned, is also suited for the rights, The Athletic says, although Disney chief Bob Iger recently warned that sports broadcasting giant would need to be more selective in the rights it acquired going forward. So ESPN needs to be more careful with what they do in terms of where they go out there. Remember here, and this is the thing that's kind of crazy. So listening to our friend Mark Rogers, he broke down what is the most valuable asset at ESPN. And it's actually this.
I would sometimes ask this question. I would say, what do you think is the most valuable property, commodity on this campus? And they would talk about, well, you just took us in this room with all this crazy equipment and there's a million. And no one would guess, well, no, it's TV rights for sports. It's owning the NBA, it's rights. It's owning the Monday Night Football, NFL rights, college football rights. So that is the last bastion of kind of property that the TV, the mega TV networks hold in college football because their studio shows are dwindling in popularity because of stuff like this. when they used to hold that market. Now, what do they have? They've got television rights. So that's everything to them. Big time live sports events is their last calling card to being at the top of the list of, sports commodities. So it's just extremely important that they maintain that and don't let it get away. And they're obviously looking at value. They're assessing the value of the league, the teams involved, versus what they're able to charge. I think the Pac-12 has painted itself into a corner, unfortunately for them. They've allowed everybody else to take up almost the entirety of the TV slots on a Saturday, and they're still sitting there. And obviously, anytime you're in a negotiation and the negotiating partner knows that you're desperate, that's not a good place to be. So the longer this goes on, the more these media companies know that the Pac-12 need them desperately.
So you think about all those factors, okay? So the longer this goes on, the more desperate they're going to get, okay? Those slots on TV are kind of getting taken up. The more and more they delay this, there's a reason why Brett Yormark moved that negotiation window up to beat the Pac-12, kind of put them in a weird bind in this situation. Also, again, if those TV slots are taken up, maybe there are streaming slots that could be filled. I'm just saying right now, there's a lot of complex things right here that are slowing down the process. ESPN's being more selective. There's a streaming option out there. ESPN's talking about streaming and the fact that it's going to go there. Nobody's really dipped their toes in terms of a conference there that way exclusively. So do I think it's going to happen exclusively? No, but I think that it's one of those things where, the first one to say maybe their tier 3 rights, maybe their tier 2 rights, maybe their second biggest game of the week is going to be on Apple TV Plus, going to be on Amazon, something like that. I don't know, but I do know that the Pac-12 right now, that's where they're at. That's kind of what's slowing it down. These ESPN layoffs are connected to it. Maybe not 100%, but again, ESPN's being more selective. The Pac-12 is trying to find out what they want to do, where they're going to fit in, so on and so forth. So I think it's a big reason why it's slowed down. Again, I think the Pac-12 is going to stay together. Some people say no. I think the Pac-12 is going to stay together, but these are contributing factors to why it's taking so long. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you guys think of this whole situation? How do you think these ESPN layoffs connect to college football, connect to ESPN, connect to the broadcast rights? Remember, ESPN needs this stuff. It's like Walmart. Walmart needs to be able to sell iPhones, this and that, and so on and so forth. If they can't do that, they're in trouble. So what they need to do is they need to find ways to get those media rights and extend them out to you. Like I said, they're a distributor. ESPN's a distributor of other people's content. Can they do it? We'll see. I do know that there's a lot of negotiations out there, but get in the comments and let me know what you think of this whole situation. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I see you guys later. I am out.